Let's go to our special guest, who is named Dr. Allecia Maine, Maine. Allecia, are you there?
I am, Jeff. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. We're going to just carry on with you. This would be fun. I haven't had a time break to be able to go through and synthesize your bio. I do have it. So please, and I hate to do this to people, but tell us a little bit about yourself for our listeners so we know what we're going to hear from. What kind of a professional?
So I have a PhD in philosophy. I recently completed a long-distance study with formerly wild horses. My background is animal communication, distance healing, qigong, and helping animals shift their behavior and their health issues naturally.
Oh, that's fun.
My PhD,
go ahead.
It's really fun.
Yeah. Now,
it's really
animal.
Fun. And
this is
amazing.
You've got. I used to have a gentleman on, and I don't. It's been a long time. He was an animal healer as well, an animal intuitive, a communicator. He could talk to horses. Mm-hmm. He could understand horses. Mm-hmm. And I had him on, Bill, somebody's from New Zealand. Great guy, wonderful stories. And the animal would be able to tell him what was hurting, what was the symptomology, because most animals cannot describe their symptomology. And the horses would tell him, and he would consult with the vets, and they would be able to go to the horse and do the proper testing. And damned if he wasn't right every time. The horse would tell him. You know, I got a pain in my bottom of my right hoof, whatever. And they had already examined it, and they couldn't see anything. But upon further examination, they'd find a nail or a rock or something that was crammed up in there. Anyway, there were other things of a far more, internal manifestation, not just an exterior thing like that. He was great. So when did you discover, Allecia, that you had this ability to really work with animals in an exceptional way? This is very interesting to me.
So I think I always knew as a kid, but it was never validated. You know, it was more, don't say that about the animals because you don't know. So I kind of let that go, and when I was in my early 20s, I was a fitness trainer in New York City, and that led to working with a client of mine who was studying Qigong meridian therapy and Qigong with Chinese master in New York City. So she gave me a gift one year of acupuncture, and that led to me studying Qigong. And through that practice, I started to really feel inside of every cell of my body, oh, wow, we already live in heaven on Mother Earth. Like, that is the energy field we really, really exist in. And a friend had called me one day and told me about this trip to Hawaii to go study animal communication. And I went, and it was incredible, and I had a very powerful one-on-one experience with a dolphin in the ocean. And it just kind of changed everything. It opened up my remembrance of the...
Hold on one sec. This is interesting. I'm not going to let that dolphin story slip away. You were out swimming, and a dolphin came up to you, or was this in a controlled environment? I got the idea you were in the ocean.
No, it was not a controlled environment. It was in Ho'okena Bay on the Big Island. And so as this animal communication retreat was taking place, the dolphins showed up on my 27th birthday, and they were all, swimming. They come into the bay with their children and, adults and babies, and they swim in a circle. It's a slower circle. And the way dolphins work, they can sleep, like they can close one eye and then kind of keep one eye open. So they were further out, and I could hear them, but I couldn't see them. And I don't know why I was in a little shallower water towards the beach, and there was like this little white I don't know, I would almost say it looked like a cotton ball. And I don't know why. I got mesmerized by it. And as I'm hearing the dolphins in the distance, and I'm playing with this little white ball, you know, and being a New Yorker, I'm going, oh, God, I hope you're not poisonous. I didn't know what it was, but it was just fascinating. And all of a sudden, I looked up, and there was a dolphin hanging right in front of me. And I was stunned. And I was like, oh, my God, you're all over there.
Sure.
The dolphin.
When you say,
said,
Allecia, one question. When you say you could hear them, were they making normal, just dolphin noises you were able to hear? Peeps and chirps? Okay.
Yeah, they were making dolphin clicks and their noises.
Good.
But when this dolphin was hanging, you know, like top of the head to the top of the water, tail towards the bottom, I literally, through my mind, I said to it, oh, my God, this is amazing. Like, what are you doing here? And I literally could feel a golden beam of light going through my stomach. And I said to the dolphin, from my mind to the dolphin's mind, what are you doing? And the dolphin said, well, what do you think that I'm doing? And I said, I don't know, but I feel a golden energy coming into my stomach. And it's almost like my stomach flipped. But if you know about Chinese medicine, the Chinese had realized very long ago through their medical system that the gut brain is actually in charge of the head brain, not the reverse. So what
I've heard that, Allecia, one thing, hold that thought. I've heard that. I've also heard that the heart brain is in charge of the brain, the computer up there on top of our shoulders.
Not so, totally.
Okay, go ahead.
So
this is interesting.
This is fascinating because this is all information that came to me directly from the animals. So they were explaining to me the difference. So the dolphin helps with the energy, and all of a sudden it was like all the channel that I had probably closed down since childhood.
Yeah.
It just opened back up, and I was like, oh, my God. So I realized that if I was going to do animal communication as something that I would make a living at, I said to the animals, if we're going to connect, I have to hear you in English. So it's very precise. So I understand exactly what you're saying, and there's nothing left open for interpretation. And that event with that dolphin really led to me going back to New York. I was on different TV shows talking about animal communication, and that led to eventually moving out to Aspen, Colorado, becoming a holistic dog trainer. And that process and that path led me to doing distance energy healing work with the animals. But everything was guided by the information I was receiving from them directly about their bodies. So I had an anatomy and physiology background as a trainer with humans, and I had also studied canine massage and equine massage. But what started to happen over a period of time, they started giving me information on a very, very simple level about how their natural science actually works. And quite honestly, it's the same way that our natural science works. It's really fascinating. But they just made it so simple that I would be able to explain things to people about why their behavior was off and how do they educate their children, right? We talk about it as training, but what is it really? They're educating their kids on what's safe and what's not safe. And so it's led to this really incredible journey. Like, I've had my dachshund trained me. I had a wolf dog that trained me. I had my own white wolf dog that came to me after my basset hound passed away. And I asked, please send me a white wolf with blue eyes who is going to teach me about the authentic energy language and leadership of the animal kingdom. And she ended up showing up 3 weeks after my basset hound had passed away. And we spent 11 years together. And she trained me. Like, she taught me this inner language, which, quite honestly, it's it's really all of our natural language. I mean, all humans and animals share the same base language of telepathy. And I'm very lucky that I learned it, and I'm so grateful that I learned it because it's helped me uncover so many of the scientific gaps in animal behavior and somewhat in human behavior also, and understanding the way the system works much more simply than what we've been told.
I see the picture of you and the white, blue-eyed wolf dog. That's a very, very amazing picture. Yeah.
Yeah,
and
that's Ayana.
Yeah. For those of you listening, Dr. Allecia Maine has a website, and it's her name, and it's spelled Allecia, Allecia Maine, just like the state, .com, AlleciaMaine.com, Allecia Maine. All right, and we'll put that up under guests as well. So if I can go back just a little bit to the dolphin, this is fascinating. Mm-hmm. What did the dolphin leave you with that sticks out in your memory now as being the most important communicative lesson, if that's the right word, lesson, whatever, the most important information you got from the dolphin? What was it as you look back?
There were two. One was the feeling aspect. I mean, I'm from New York, so, I tend to curse at different things, but it's always an adjective because it's just excitement. It's just a descriptor. There was so much joy that I experienced through my entire body being in the presence of this completely wild animal. It's the profound joy of nature and the reality that we already live in heaven on Mother Earth. And we don't really need to recreate it. We just have to stop doing a lot of the dumb things we do that are not in alignment with nature. That was one thing, is that just that profound joy that almost makes you literally want to curse because it's not a bad thing. It's just there's so much joy. You're like, I can't believe this is amazing.
Can't take it. Yeah, I understand. That's a once-in-a-lifetime feeling. That's
oh, my God. And I'm sure you're aware, we live so much of our lives in our intellectual brain. And we believe that we're the most intelligent species on the planet.
Oh, yes.
We're the species that lives the most unnaturally and lives the most disconnected from our bodies. So the joy that I felt in the presence of that being, that was just, if you really think about it statistically, what are the chances that at that exact moment, at that exact time, at that exact location, of anything that could possibly happen, we're in the same space. And it's not a controlled environment. So there's no, I couldn't have planned it. I didn't call this dolphin, towards me. So that would just really blew my conscious mind and my indoctrinated mind of how things work on this planet. That was one. The second biggest profound experience was the fact of that communication was so crystal clear that it made me realize, oh, my God, how much have we shut ourselves off? How much did I shut myself off from the truth of what really is here for us to experience?
Our human potential. We're not in tune with that. And what we could be on this planet is so much more than we are or probably ever will be. I don't want to say ever negatively, but this species is headed towards some real bad times, and we're going. Well, maybe it's our karma, if there is such a thing. But we're in trouble here. We've really gotten in trouble, and I don't know. But you are very lucky, very blessed. I don't have to say that, to have this happen.
I've had so many blessed experiences with the animals in the animal kingdom, and we're being able to receive information directly from them, that it's not coming through my mind brain. Like, I'm not trying to figure it out. I didn't study. I don't know what it is. Dropping back down into my gut brain, what the animals explained to me was the way that we are now using neuroscience, for instance, right? Saying, okay, these are how the chemicals happen, and this is what happens. Right. But what the animal said was, hey, it's backwards. Your brain doesn't feel. The only thing that your brain has receptors to light up, hey, that you experience that, but it's a processor. It only processes logic and reason.
Okay.
The data, the raw data, which is not just what we hear or see, like verbally or written. So it's not just auditory and visual. The raw data of, like, the entire picture of not just, like, what's contained in the information of what's written or what's heard, but the raw data of the entirety of the experience. Like, it's like a 360-degree data experience, not just like a 2-lane highway.
Got it.
That actually comes in, is received by the gut brain. So that information comes in, it goes up to the head brain, which architects how do we do this in a 3D way, and then the heart brain is the balancer between the gut and the head brain. So the heart brain is what circulates it in the field once that raw data comes into our gut brain and then goes up to our head brain to decide, okay, logistically, how do I architect this in 3D? So the way that we think that we learn, it's actually backwards.
So when
the chemicals
go ahead, the chemicals.
I was just going to say, so when the other thing the animals taught me was about the spinal alignment, and they said, listen, the spine is the master key of how the energy flows through all of your bodies. So if your body alignment is off, it's going to compromise your respiration.
Oh, see? Well, this is all about chiropractic. A good chiropractor, as I've said for many years, is worth his or her weight in gold. They can tune you up and unblock all of the neurological impasses in your body, and actually it seems like a miracle if you get a good one, and you've got to be careful because there's some of them
This was what was so fascinating in terms of we have volumes and volumes and volumes and volumes of information about our health, down to the smallest molecular thing. The animals made it so simple. They were like, listen, if your spinal alignment is off balance, and I'm not a chiropractor, I'm not an acupuncturist, but I rebalance their bodies by releasing the fascia tissue, like that covers the whole inside of the body, and it allows the misalignment in the spine to just relax back into place. Like once that fascia tissue is released. Yeah. That's what my PhD was about. But the simplicity that they said was, if you get the spinal alignment proper, then all of the energy can flow properly. When you know that if you have a tightness in your back and then you go to the chiropractor and get it released, what's the first thing that happens once your spine gets into alignment? You take a deep breath.
Almost every time. You end up saying to the chiropractor, I can breathe again. I can breathe again. Exactly. I've said that many times. Yeah. All of a sudden your diaphragm can flex, the muscle constriction on your spine. Yeah.
Yep. And so what happens there is, as soon as you take a deep breath, your nervous system shifts, from being kind of like stressed and blocked to, oh, wow, now I'm open and receptive. And then from the nervous system relaxing, it sends the signaling up to the brain for optimal chemistry. So when they're working with the neuroscience factor, as far as I'm aware of, they're looking at the chemistry in the brain, and they're trying to utilize drugs or different things to, adjust brain chemistry. But what the animals said to me was, go with the back first, let the respiration change, let the nervous system change, let the chemistry change, and then you'll know what you need. So much of the neuroscience is looking at the chemicals, but they've missed the 4 steps before.
I got it.
And
hold on a second. Allecia, hold on. I have to take a break here. We'll come back in just a few minutes and carry on, so don't go away. This is really interesting. You're making a fine presentation with this. It's very logical, very pragmatic, and it fits with most everything I knew, at least intuitively, if not pragmatically. Hold on. We'll be right back with Allecia, Maine in just a few minutes. Okay, welcome back. Talking with Allecia, Maine. Let's remind you that this hour is to highlight one of the great products, and we'll talk about this with Allecia in a few minutes. We have more things to cover yet. Bio-Superfood. Now, I first introduced Bio-Superfood to all of you all around the world right after the Fukushima catastrophe, because the work done in the Soviet Union by Dr. Kiriak in creating Bio-Superfood was so important. And he probably saved, I don't know, a couple 100,000 lives, maybe more, after the terrible nuclear meltdown in Ukraine. And I think most of you remember that. It's a product that will help detox not only radioactive issues from the body, but heavy metals and other things as well. Ultimately, though, Bio-Superfood is loaded with nutrition. It has nutrients in it that you probably, literally, will never encounter with the great American diet. It won't happen. 15,000 different nutrients in every capsule. But we'll get back to that and talk to Allecia about that in more detail a little bit later. All right, now, Dr. Allecia, Maine, Ph.D., is an animal communicator, animal healer, as it were. She can also do remote healing. Now, a lot of you will immediately, reflexively, and understand, say, come on, give me a break. You can't heal somebody from distance. Well, I'm here to tell you can, and it's been done. I've had it done several times over the years and years, and if you lay still and the person doing it will go to work, you can feel it especially in my back. I used to feel it in my back all the time, and it's real. Thought is energy, and we live in an energetic world of frequencies and things that I'm sure that don't even have names. It's that sophisticated. Anyhow, let's finish up what we were talking about, and then we can go on to the remote healing idea. That's really an intriguing topic. What were we just about finishing up on? I don't remember, honestly.
We were talking about how simple the system is, the way the animals see
That's
it.
right.
And we were talking about chiropractic.
Right.
And that once the spine, any interference, any little misadjustments, any tightness in the fascia or the muscles is released, it affects immediately the breathing and the respiration. We breathe deeper, we relax more, it adjusts our nervous system, and then the nervous system sends that chemistry up to the brain. And when I first met Roland about 21 years ago, and I was at my mentor, one of my animal communication mentors, Kate Felicit's house, and I didn't meet Roland. I met somebody that was working with Bio-Superfood that introduced me to it, and then I landed up meeting Roland and Dr. Kiriak in Boulder, Colorado, a couple months later. And the product fascinated me. Because the first time that I took it, I remember exactly where I was. I had moved to Colorado. I was in Colorado about 2 years. I was standing in the kitchen of my house, and I was like, oh, my God, this has to get into my body. I took 2 capsules, and as soon soon as I did, I felt a white light in my forehead, in my chest, and in my stomach. And as we mentioned, I had been communicating with the animals. But the communication, everything has intelligence. Everything has the capacity for telepathic communication. So I literally said to the product, "What are you?" I was like, what just happened? And the product said back to me, "I am intelligence in a bottle."
Oh, my.
I was like,
what a fascinating insight. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
that's mind-boggling.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? It was mind-boggling. Yeah. See, that's why we have to kind of get out of our minds, because our mind, right, it's just logic and reason, but the mind can't feel and the mind can't sense. It can only process information.
Yeah. Neither can a cell phone. Same idea.
Same idea, right? It's just a connector of information, but it's not how the information is absorbed. When that happened, I was like, oh my God, my stomach just absorbed the information in this algae, and it just went up to my brain. And I was fascinated that the way that the product works is it is working with the three master glands that send out all of the chemistry, basically, which is the pineal, the pituitary, and the hypothalamus.
Right.
That is super, duper, duper important. And I started doing all kinds of testing on my own with animals. We tested it with arthritis. We tested it with cataracts. We tested it with, and I'm not saying it cures anything. I'm just saying there were interesting results.
Yes.
For, liver disease, for skin issues, for, hot spots, behavior issues. I used it with aggressive dogs. I used it with puppies. I used it with animals that were having bowel issues. And I just really was blown away. I had thyroid issues, all kinds of stuff. And again, I'm not making any medical claims whatsoever.
Understood.
These are just the things that these animals were diagnosed with. And it was like, well, let's just see if anything happens. So it was really fascinating to work with the product, because usually if you're working with a product, it's for a specific thing. You know what I mean? It's for a specific condition.
Understood.
And just seeing the wide range of things that it was helping with. And I had friends that were depressed. I had friends that, were just like on the brink of stuff, and they couldn't get out of it. And I was like, just try it. I don't know what's going to happen. But the range of conditions that I saw being benefited blew my mind. And I knew that I wasn't, at first like, okay, a white light hit me in the head and the stomach and the chest. And I'm thinking, am I crazy? And then working with the product as not something like, here, just take this. But it is divine intelligence in a bottle. And what Dr. Kiriak, with all the research that he did and how these four algae work in such a powerful way, it just blown me away. And I've been using the product for over 21 years. Still recommend it. It's still one of my number one things. I always muscle test to see if the system says, yes, I want this, or no, I don't. But the results, pancreatitis in dogs, it's the only thing I've ever found that actually works and gets rid of it.
Fascinating. Well, let's go back to what's in it. And what's in it are over, at least, Roland, I don't know how many for sure, but he says at least 15,000 different micronutrients that you will never see in most lives on this planet because of the diet you eat. We just don't get the diversity, especially in a packaged food or fast food culture like this one. Most people are terribly nutritionally deprived. It's awful when you think about it. And so suddenly you're being given nutrients that in some cases, in many cases, people literally never encounter. They just don't eat right. And so all of a sudden you're putting the proper fuel in your, it's not just a physical tank. You're doing a lot. This algae is almost, I don't want to get into trouble here. It's almost magical the way it works. I take, like I say, 7, 8 a day, every day. And if I hadn't had this, and I've had it just about as long as you, I wouldn't be able to do what I do. I wouldn't be able to handle this kind of a load. Couldn't do it.
The clarity of thought, and because too, there's also a ton of enzymes in the product, and so enzymes, digestive enzymes, are really, really important at the very beginning when you're starting to eat things, because it basically pre-digests the food, and so that when it gets to the stomach, the right amount of hydrochloric acid is being released. When you don't have those digestive enzymes, and this is humans and this is animals as well, because for humans, as soon as you cook food past 118 degrees, you basically killed the enzymes. And then the same thing for the animals. So why people are seeing so much benefit of raw food? Because you haven't cooked the enzymes out. So there's more availability and it's a shorter digestive time when they're eating raw food. For us humans, we don't realize we lose enzymes. Yes.
You said something else that's very interesting and very few people understand. Digestion actually begins in the mouth. When you're chewing your food, if you chew it properly, and you should chew it until you really can't taste it much anymore, your body is releasing proteins and enzymes right in your mouth that tell your stomach basically to prepare for what's coming. Now, you've made that very clear, and that's very unusual to hear anybody talk about. But you're right. It's the truth.
Yeah.
I learned that in biology long ago. Salivary amylase is one of the breakdown products in your saliva that goes to work right away.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
What affects the digestive enzymes? Age. If you're cooking food past 118 degrees, if you look at most food, the way the creator created the food, there's always a balance. But then when you cook it, you've taken away that balance. And as we get older, as we get stressed, as we have more, shall we say, pollutants in our body from things that are not natural and synthetic.
We become toxic. That's right.
Yeah. And so, and what's happening too? Did they forget about gravity? If our skies are being sprayed, well, what goes up must come down. So think about what, we're walking around in shoes. Our animals are walking around in their paws. They're touching the ground when the rains come down, when the snows come down. Now there's a lot more stuff in there that they are now licking and getting into their bodies. So it's super important for us as humans, obviously, to be on a product like that, but especially for our animals because they're getting sicker faster. And it's because of a lot of the non-natural stuff. And so there has to be that awareness that, if your dog is on dry food, you're going to want to add enzymes into their food. And I'm seeing it, interestingly enough, normally I put a 6 or 7 or 8-year-old animal starting to experience maybe some tightness in their hips or a little bit of arthritis. I might put them on. I'm seeing younger and younger ages. I'm putting puppies on it because I'm seeing the distortions in generation after generation kind of being bred, their health and vitality is literally kind of being bred down, and they're getting sicker and sicker at younger and younger ages. And it's very interesting to observe. Not a lot of people are doing the research, on animals generation after generation. I know one vet, Dr. Jean Dodge, she's amazing. She's doing a lot of research with that. But bionutrition is one of the things that I have found that is just across the board. And I don't like to say across the board because there's many different things that, could be missing. But it is my one staple. And it's wonderful because people come to me with their animals and they see how well it works with their animals and they're like, do they make it for humans? But yep, they absolutely make it for humans and you should be taking it too.
deal with clients who have pets, for example, let's say somebody has a dog or a cat, and how much of your work is done remotely, or do you have a walk-in clinic as well, or an office? It's all remote.
All of it. It's all done remotely. So, I was doing remote before COVID, and I was doing a lot more dog training. And then February 20th of 2020, I went out to see a friend in Colorado who has a small ranchette, and he has a horse rescue for wild mustangs and burros. And anytime I'm around the animals, like, they kind of, can you help me? Can you help me? Sure. So I worked on a few animals, and I don't really touch the animals anymore so much when I work on them, because I've just found that even if I'm standing 5 feet away from them, and I've worked with clients that are in Egypt, so we're talking 7,000 miles away from Zune.
Wow.
I just find that when I touch them, I go into my 3D mindset and the limitations of the physical body. But when I'm off the body, I can energetically feel their bodies much more clearly. I know that's going to sound weird to some people, but I can go deeper than just so I can go deeper than the physical. So when I finished that day, and we'd worked with a horse named Clancy, and Clancy was amazing. He's a formerly wild band stallion. And so, he was at least 10 years of his life out on the range. And my friend George said to me, the problem with this horse is I've had him for a year and a half, and he won't let me get past his shoulder in order to pet him. And so Clancy, stood there for a sec. He walked away. I did my releases of the fascia on him, which realigns his back and his body. And that took maybe 20 minutes. And he came back and he walked over. And George and I were talking. And it was my first time around wild mustangs that close to me. I had about 6 girls behind me, 6 Mustang females, mares behind me. Yeah. And so George and I were talking, but my eyes were sort of also focused behind me. And all of a sudden, George is going, and now I can touch his shoulder, and now I can touch his side, and now I can touch his butt. And I'm going, I know I just met this guy, but does he think that I'm deaf? I was like, why is he? And I didn't realize, because my focus was a little bit split, that he was saying, look at what you just did that took 20 minutes. He walked back over here. There was no training whatsoever. We didn't move his feet. We didn't, nothing. He didn't even have a halter on. And he said within 25 minutes, I now went from not being able to go past his shoulder to touching him all the way on his butt. And my jaw kind of dropped, because I've been doing this work a lot with dogs, and I had my own horse, and I've been working with horses. But it just struck me. I was like, wait a minute. What if we have this whole behavior training paradigm backwards? What if it's not about training the body and moving the body per se? What if it's about realigning the body? And that's when I started to understand, oh, my God, when the body gets into alignment and the breath changes, because wild Mustangs, they're going to have bangs, bruises, bumps, all kinds of stuff. And when you go to train a horse that is feral and that has a body that's out of alignment, under their own circumstances, they're going to be fine. But now if you start moving them in ways that are not natural to them, they're going to be more suspicious. It's going to look sometimes like they have a behavior problem. And when I started to recognize after that happened with Clancy, I'm like, oh, my God, you guys actually, most of our animal training is backwards, because we keep thinking, because we're humans, and we think cognitive first. We don't think body first. That's what affects the brain. We think brain first, and that's why, the body's acting this way. But what I was shown in that moment was that everything we're doing is kind of backwards. I mean, backwards with behavior training, backwards with how we eat, backwards how you don't poison a planet if you want it to be healthy, that kind of stuff. And it was all of these synapses started firing in my brain.
Yeah, you
and
got
I was
it.
like, wow, what if the key is and Clancy wasn't touchable, right? So being able to have the advantage of work on him off body and then to see those immediate changes, and they have lasted ever since. He's never reverted back to, you can't touch me. Wow. And it just blew my mind. So I was coming home from my friend George's. There's a canyon I have to drive through, and at one point the horses just said, pull over, we need to talk with you. They literally told me that I was going to do the PhD, how I was going to do the PhD, and in the next 6 months I set everything up to do all. I did a case study with 27 formerly wild horses. I did not meet a single horse. I did everything over Zoom, so they couldn't even have the expectation of what I would be doing with them, but I did the same exact process with every horse. I developed it based on trainings from a dog that taught me how to do this really simple process that mirrors the back assessment points from Chinese medicine. And so I worked with 27 different horses from distances of 100 to 2,000 miles away. And every single animal that was having behavior issues, within the session of their bodies going back into balance and their structural alignment being better, every single horse had an immediate behavior change that the people that were with them, that were filming, that know them, could verify. And I have all of this recorded. And it's just fascinating because we test on animals and we harm them. And I'm like, what if we could do this in a video that makes us learn? We could learn more without causing any harm,
If I hadn't had that friendship with that really nice fellow, Bill, I can't remember his name, and his work with horses was very similar in some ways to what I'm hearing from you. He could do it remotely. If he were to go up to a horse in a ring or whatever, he wouldn't have to touch them. It was the same idea. He would be able to interact. Now, we're just about out of time here, but if you can do this with dogs and horses and so forth remotely, what about people? Is that something you'd even want to try to take on? I'm sure you probably have, but is it something that's...
I have. People are interesting because, we have that prefrontal cortex, which makes us kind of analyze everything. So we tend to, even if something adjusts, we tend to go back to the pattern in the brain, or the horses, or the dogs, or the cats.
Right. It's a thought.
Yeah, once it's released, the most fascinating thing I found about this, I failed every math and science class I ever took. So I thought I was dumb. And I was born in Albert Einstein Hospital in the Bronx, and we share the same initials. And Albert Einstein had, in his studies of quantum physics, when he talked about quantum entanglements, he always said, that's spooky action at a distance. And what I find so kind of ironic, funny, even though I failed every math and science class, when I started taking my Qigong classes and I started practicing daily, all of a sudden, one day I was in my room and I went, oh my God, I can heal myself. Oh my God. And then the healing myself, and then the working on the animals, and then the working on the animals at a distance, when I finished my PhD and I got approved, I was sitting in my apartment in my chair, and I heard the horses say, do you realize that you just proved the unified field theory of quantum physics and quantum entanglement? Even though the quantum physicists will say you didn't do it, they said, we want you to know you just proved it in real time that we are actually the science. And that if we stay tuned in with our stuff and our instinct, we'll understand again naturally how everything works. Because we've kind of... So
Very,
I thought
very
that was
good.
pretty fascinating.
That's pretty. Yes, that is pretty darn fascinating. We are out of time, Allecia, and I want to thank you for staying with us the whole hour. If you want to write to Allecia, it's hello at animal healer. That's HEELER.com. Hello at animalhealer.com. So contact Allecia and ask her any questions you might have. This is all about getting better. And yes, Bio Superfood will help you get better. Yes, indeed. Thank you, Allecia, very much. That was fascinating. And you keep up the good work. You're making a difference. You're very welcome.
Thank you so much for your program and your time.
You're welcome. Thank you. All right, you take care. All right. We will be back tomorrow night. And thanks for being with us. You are appreciated. Take good care. Talk soon.